Hello all you groovy people. Once again, the YellowShy YouTube channel immerses amongst the airwaves of YouTube's most magnificent little community and audience. That's you people. Where people urinate on the sides of houses. It's Pokemon Cawps. We're back for part 2 where Roy Moore lived in this house. That's what happened in part 1. We're not going to go in there though. Because he's gone really off the rails since he lost the election there. Not that he wasn't on the rails to begin with. But of course he's protesting that election because, God's on his side because, he quotes the book more than the other guy or whatever. However politics works, I don't understand. In America, we're here again. It's true, Roy Moore. Here's the thing about Roy Moore is he tries really hard to be an old-time conservative, cowboy-loving misogynist, but the thing is, I've ridden a horse twice in my life. I can ride a horse better than Roy Moore can. That horse did not want Roy Moore on its saddle. It really didn't. It was trying to shrug him off. It was quite reluctant. In fact, if they would have let him bring it into the voting booth, it probably would have tried to, shake him off to vote for Doug Jones, because that's the humane and sensible thing to do. Anyways, speaking of sexual predation, it runs wild here on Pokemon Cawps, and we're here in the forest, the Petalburg Woods, which would be a prime area for very weird things to take place. This is no exception. I do know there's some drugs and things that we're gonna find ourselves having to deal with here in the woods. I know that because I'm post-commentating as always. By the way, I am YellowShy. That's the video, the channel that you're watching, and yes, we're post-commentating because we're trying that out. We're trying it out. Yeah, we will be talking about the victims a lot, and we actually do. There are some. We do come across some women in the video that talk about the struggles of being a police officer and a woman in a male-dominated, really gross, hypocritical fucking section of society that is police officers. We don't really get into police brutality in this video. I don't know if that's going to happen in this video. So far, this game, I haven't decided yet whether it's satire or if this is really the true mind of the creator. And given that the creator was probably a 15, 16-year-old male, I'm going with the latter, and that this is precisely what he finds funny, and he's not making fun of people who actually think this way. But we'll see. Like I said, we do meet some pretty some women with some quite salient things to say. But we meet our shroomish fellow here, and it's in bad taste. Those guys were high, and speaking of high, happy holidays. I meant to upload before the peak of the spirit season, but I completely got him very busy with all of the Christmas things. I'm a white person, so of course, our family celebrates Christmas, which means spending a lot of time with family that you don't really want to see. Thanksgiving wasn't that long ago. I think, although Canadian Thanksgiving is in October, we at least got the idea of not having an entire family gather twice in 2 months or whatever they do in America. That's way, way too much, or too little time apart from all of those family members that you loathe. But hooray for you, you made it, and you don't have to see them until next November. If you're that kind of traditional, white people, family gathering kind of people. I'm not saying that just white people do that. I'm just poking fun at white people any chance that I can get. Aren't you one? Yep. So we'll be talking about some, I don't know what we're going to talk about here. So we've run into some Team Magma grunts here. We will eventually get to Slate. Well, no, I thought it was Slateport City, but it's not, because it's the same tile as the shipyard, the interior of it. But we do go to the police headquarters after we go through the forest here and we graduate. And it's a massive building with lots of cops that we talk to, and then we head out to Rustboro City for our first sort of patrol, I guess, for lack of a better word to use there. We roam the streets of, of Rustboro, bringing law and order to the city by, arresting people, we raid a marijuana shop and we send them to jail. It's really great. So you have all that to look forward to in this video, while I, of course, talk about many things. I'm not drinking. I am drinking, yes. I mentioned about getting high. But that's the thing about the holidays, is I had to spend it with my family, which included a bunch of screaming little kids who get really excited about Christmas. And, it's good for them, because I remember being a screaming little kid getting excited about Christmas when I was little. But I just can't stand it. The parents of those children, they're not the best parents, I don't think. And I haven't really developed, if I ever do become a parent, how I want to parent kids, if I'm going to be hard on them, or if I'm going to give them everything. But who was was it Edwards? No. I can't think of what the psychologist's name, who has the reward system. And I don't mean Cantor, or no, not Cantor. I'm getting all of my names mixed up. I don't mean the psychologist who, Pavlov, with the dogs, conditioning them or whatever. I mean the rewards and reinforcements and things like that. What the hell was his name? I can't think of his name. Basically, anyways. I don't think that would be my parenting style, but that's these parents' style. So they give them, like toys and shit all the time. So I struggle to see how the kids find anything, what's so different about Christmas, because they're given every fucking thing in the world. Anyways, of course, Christian Christmas has turned into this commercial endeavor where we buy a whole bunch of things to enrich corporations who are already quite rich, and we use it, of course, most importantly, as a behavior modification, so that we can use it as a threat to make sure our children are behaved the way we want them to behave, by not making up a story. I mean, we are making up a story, and it is magical. I love Santa Claus. Nothing against Santa Claus, but, he watches you while you're sleeping? That's what we're telling kids? No wonder fucking video games like this gets made, because we're ingraining them that it's okay to, fucking watch on kids when you're old men and shit, and, making sure you're not naughty. Yeah. I'm surprised a bunch of women haven't come forward on Santa Claus, because he comes at nighttime and no one ever sees him. How strange is that, right? He just slips in and, gets his shit done or whatever. So, I deal with the small children that were around my house for Christmas by giving them their toys and locking them in a room with their toy, so that I can go get high in the meantime and actually enjoy the real spirit of Christmas, which is up swirling amongst the music of the era. We were playing some music earlier. I'm not actually getting high right now, if that's what you were thinking. I'm ingesting liquids, because the other thing about Christmas, you'll find this about when you get older kids, is that hey, here's one of these women. He's like, I have to be vicious, they can respect me. That's some interesting commentary there. But we probably won't think about that too much, because the later comment about the male cop coming all over the keyboard is going to get so many 16-year-olds giddy that they're going to forget all about the social justice aspect of the game, or at least what my commentary on it wants to be about. I'm drinking wine because here's the other thing about Christmas that you'll understand when you get older, is that it doesn't matter if you ever tell anybody that you like or don't like wine. Some distant friend that you haven't seen all year is gonna send you a bottle of wine anyways. So you may as well learn to like wine, which is something I have over the last couple of years. I received 5 bottles of wine this year, and none of them were red. They were all white wine, so I don't know what that says about me. So I'm trying to get through them. I'm not spacing them out through the year, because that's the thing about alcohol. When you have so much of it, it seems like you're never going to run out, so you just keep drinking. So we're drinking a wine right now, and we were getting it on earlier. We had Are You Experienced the Jimi Hendrix album Rocking earlier, just a few minutes before I started recording this, and I had to stop it in a haste because I remembered, of course, that anytime you play Jimi Hendrix on YouTube, you will receive the death penalty. It goes beyond copyright infringement. Jimmy takes it to a whole new level. So, same with Bob Dylan, who coincidentally I was listening to the other night as well. How old are you again, Shane? Shut up. Anyways, yeah, I was rocking out to some Jimmy, and I would sing to you, but the thing is, I'm so good at imitating. As you know, I have this arcane ability to imitate any singer and copy and mimic their voice precisely. So I still might get flagged for copyright even if I sing Jimi Hendrix for you. I'm joking, of course, but that's the way it is. Hey Joe, what you doing with that gun in your hand? We might talk about guns some other time over the course of the playthrough. Who knows? Oh, but that reminds me, speaking of music, Brooks Roberts, who is a musician, and is quite hard on himself, and I think he's fantastic. He's put on some of his music out on YouTube. You really need to see him. I think he would like this game. I don't know, I get that weird sense that he would be drawn to it, but he would find it vile and disgusting and too vulgar for him at the same time. I love Brooks. He's a internet friend of mine who, Georgia, is that? I think he lives in Georgia. And he's a dear friend over the years, and we've never actually talked to each other with our physical voices, which is very strange, but maybe not for you, because that's how half your friends are in your life, because you're techie and shit. But I'm not so much. And anyways, he was saying, I asked, because I was singing AC/DC the start of the first part, and I said, well, who do you want me to sing this time? And he said Tears for Fears, and I forgot. I queued up some Tears for Fears here for me to sing here, and so I thought I would. And so this one's for you, Brooks, because you wanted Tears for Fears. I actually sang this song at karaoke, like my first ever karaoke experience. It was an 80s night, so they kind of laughed when like a 19-year-old came up there, but I can do Roland to a point, Brooks. Just wait. I wanted to be with you alone and talk about the weather, but traditions I can trace against the child in your face. Won't escape my ambition. You keep your distance with a system of touch and gentle persuasion. Admiration, could I need you this much? Now you're wasting my time. You're just wasting time. Something happens and I'm head over heels. I never find out until... Yeah. That was a karaoke version I was playing. I played that a couple years ago at karaoke night. And I was doing good. My voice is cracking a bit. I presume it's the wine. No, I'm a terrible singer, of course. We're here in the slums. We're talking about poverty now. The game's talking about poverty. It's not cool. They have tents and shit. Cool tents with Pokeballs on them. Do something about the poor and not give a bunch of crazy tax cuts to the rich. So that you can retire with even more money than you already have. Because, you need to reward yourselves for being racist, misogynist, demagogue, backing, inhumane fucking GOP. You need to reward yourself for a long life in the Senate. of doing those things and supporting white supremacy and all that jazz, and the rich. I played and I was doing really good. And then, like, I could see the faces in the crowd, and like, geez, that guy sounds just like Roland Orzabal. And I just completely lost it at the end. Like, my voice cracked, and I was like, and this is my four-leaf clover. Like, that's pretty close to how I sounded. So we started off high, and we really dropped down at the end. As they say, I sprinted instead of ran the marathon. So anyways, happy holidays, especially to you, Brooks. I hope you had a really great time. I know school sounded, from what it sounded like on Twitter, not that Twitter like speaks to me and I hear Twitter, because it has a sound to it. I saw on your Twitter that you got through your term at school, so I hope you really enjoyed your break. I haven't been around enough to really be engaging in some conversation with you or with anybody for that matter over YouTube videos and things like that. I've just been so busy, and such is the case of getting older. So kids, don't get old, okay? Just stay young forever, but pay attention to the world at the same time, you know, like, and be better at the same time. Like, there's so much pressure in the world, and find true love while you're at it. Because, you know, we expect you to find it even though nobody in the fucking world has found true love. Those are people who aren't alcoholics who say that, of course. Gosh, you've been plugging alcohol a lot this episode, Shane. I'm not even old enough to drink. Well, it's the holidays. We lose to this guy, by the way, if you haven't figured that out already. His nose pass is ridiculous. I haven't talked about anything I want to talk about in this video, but we're 8 minutes away from ending. We should really start the commentary. So, Brooks, I hope you're doing well anyways, and we need to do something together, like collaborate on something. Maybe in the summer, when I have a bit more time on my hands, we gotta do something. We've known each other for what, like almost 8 years. Brooks was one of the first person I met on YouTube on my old channel. So I think it was 2009 maybe. So we really do need to do something. But speaking of Brooks, I have Mel Brooks written down on my page of things to talk about. So that's a really smooth transition, if you ask me. I want to talk about Mel Brooks. I was watching on Turner Classics. Yeah, I watched Turner Classics. This is the same person who said in this episode they listened to Jimi Hendrix and Bob Dylan. So yeah, I watched Mel Brooks. The Producers was on the other night, and I'd seen the Producers a few years ago, and I thought, I was immersing myself into films and classic films for that matter. I thought it was the most brilliant thing in the world because it makes fun of Hitler, and no filmmaker really had been bodacious or had the audacity to make satire Hitler before Nazi Germany, right? Because they get the Nazi sympathizer to write the script, and the first number the guy comes on. Germany was having trouble, what a sad story, needed a new leader to restore its former glory. Where, oh, where was he? Where could that man be? We looked around, and then oh yeah, I know the words, right? The man for you and me, and now and then the guy comes on, right? Springtime for Hitler and Germany. You're right, but there's a lot of, this is what I want to talk about. It's a brilliant film. I think you should watch The Producers, but I think we need to have, which is something that I don't know if we do when we talk about classic films. I don't talk about classic films, Shane. I don't care. Too bad. You've gone way too far in this video without finding some other video to watch, so clearly you must have some allure to what I have to say at this point. So, I think we need to reevaluate what is funny in classic films. We often say a classic film, goes, oh, that's a classic, you need to watch it. And that's all we say. It was groundbreaking at the time, or whatever. But we really need to look at the entire film, I think, through the lens of a critic from 2017 and applying it what's appropriate to be funny and what's not. Because Mel Brooks made a bunch of extraordinary comedies, and I love Mel Brooks for the reason, I think, because I love Gene Wilder. So I love a lot of Mel Brooks films, whether it's Young Frankenstein or Blazing Saddles. I think they're extraordinary films, but that's not to say that there's some parts of that I think are... I mean, that was Mel Brooks' shtick, was to push something inappropriate to make it funny, and I think it works with, you know, that whole scene, I think, with the Springtime for Hitler number. I mean, that's fantastic. Some of the costume choices of the women, you know, you could say that reflects the times, and it's satire, it's making fun of Germany, whatever, but Zero Nostell, who plays the producer in the film, he's what do you call him, a gigolo, and so he has like sex with old women in return for their money and whatnot, to, you know, back his films and shit, or his plays, and they get a secretary at one point who's like doesn't speak very good English, like Scandinavian, and, you know, like flaunts and like struts and, you know, whatever. And they you know, they're staring at her ass or whatever, right? I mean, I think we need to be critical about those parts in the films. We can't just say, oh, Mel Brooks was a comic genius back in the day, and then we just let that kind of stuff slide. I think when we let that stuff slide, I think that's how we continue to let that stuff slide today. So I that's all I really wanted to bring up. I don't know if you've seen The Producers. You should see The Producers. It's a great film, but I think we need to, just because something's classic, times have changed considerably since then, and we need to re-examine. It can still be worth watching, just because there's some sexist shit in it. But let's just make sure that we condemn that as inappropriate and not worthy of comedy today, even though it's something from the end. I wouldn't suggest that we like take if we took off, like, said any classic film and we only kept the classic films that weren't sexist, you would find the library of historical films would be quite small. So I just think that we need to be a little bit more critical when we analyze classic films. But you can also look to classic films and find some incredibly fierce women as well. This is the feminist part of the show, in case you haven't figured that out yet. I was also watching, it's become a holiday tradition. A lot of people watch Die Hard on Christmas. I watch Casablanca. Did I mention I like old things? I don't know. Do I have time to talk about this? I have no idea. I probably don't. There's only about 2-3 minutes left in this video, so I probably don't have time. I also have written down the Rio story about why Growlithe's named Rio. I guess that's going to have to wait until the next episode as well. Oh dear. I was going to talk about Howard Hawks. It was a director in the 40s, and he directed The Big Sleep, which was a fantastic film with Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart. So why don't you just watch The Big Sleep, and we'll reconvene for part 3, which will happen in about, like, I don't know, 3 weeks? I'm hopefully sooner than that. Hopefully next week. Maybe even by the end of this. Or early next week, Monday or something. But I also wanted to talk about, Howard Hawks and Lauren Bacall. I also wanted to talk about Tallulah Bankhead, who plays the lead role in Lifeboat, which is a Hitchcock film. So maybe watch Lifeboat as well. Tallulah Bankhead is a fantastic woman. I think those are the people we need to look to when we look to the classics to find women who are expressive and fierce and really awesome. One quote I love about Tallulah Bankhead, she was relentless when it came to being notorious. Let's put it that way. And Tallulah Bankhead, I guess I'll leave you with this quote. When she left for Hollywood, her friend said, "What? Be careful of booze and men." And she said, "It wasn't the booze and the men that got me. They warned me about the booze and men. They didn't warn me about cocaine and women." And I thought that was fantastic for her to say that. She was really great. And she really is the pulse that keeps the movie Lifeboat going, because it is an entire movie shot in a lifeboat. in one scene. It's kind of like Dog Day Afternoon, where it's just one continuous scene. Although it's not actually one continuous scene. You get the idea. We get cut here from the cut man, and he kind of said something sexist, so we'll denounce that, and we'll stop here, and we'll pick up next time on part 3 of Pokemon Cawps. So I hope everyone had a great time here. I really did. It seemed to go by really fast, and so has the wine. So again, I hope you all had a groovy holiday, kittens, and we'll reconvene here on part 3. I hope this next week here I might be around YouTube a little bit more. I might be able to finally get to chat and like pretend I'm alive and shit. So we'll see you later. Thank you so much for watching.